feel like this is going to be, I hope it's going to be the hardest video I ever have to make, but it's a video that I want to make nonetheless, because I want to have a video that will forever be on my channel that is just about Cody, and that I can just watch whenever I want to hear about my little boy. Yeah, wherever I am in the world, I can just watch this video, and I want everyone to know how amazing he was, because he was unbelievable, and I still can't believe that I made him, and he was just so perfect. There will be a few tears in this video, but that is absolutely okay. If you follow me on TikTok, then you would know I was pregnant. I haven't posted anything on YouTube. I haven't posted on YouTube in so long. Just even before the pregnancy, life was a bit of a bitch. And yeah, I just felt like I was in survival mode. And then I found out I was pregnant, and I just felt like, I was like, this is it. This is like, finally my life feels like it's finally like getting better, and it's finally getting back on track. And I'm sure on the outside to everyone, like, my life seemed amazing and it seemed perfect, but it wasn't. I really wasn't okay. And yeah, finding out I was pregnant, it was definitely a shock, but I was so excited. And Tristan was obviously very shocked at the beginning, but he came around and we were both just so excited to be mum and dad. And I've always wanted to be a young mum, so I was like, you know what, it might be younger than I thought, but I'm so excited and I'm so ready. But that just, the way we envisioned, just definitely didn't happen. I had a very seamless pregnancy. I say I was very lucky, but I feel like you can't say that when this happened. But my pregnancy was pretty seamless. The only hiccup I had was at 28 weeks when they had a bit of an abnormal tracing on the monitor, so I got taken into hospital, and it was still a bit back and forward, but it was okay. And so they decided they weren't going to deliver, because I was just bang on 28 weeks. I had steroid injections for his lungs in case they were going to, and everything, and they decided we're not delivering. And I have to not keep thinking back to that, because all I can think of is, well, what if you delivered then, would I still have my baby? Because what happened couldn't have been an issue at 28 weeks. So that's really hard. But of course you've then got the other thing of, well, if he was born at 28 weeks, there would have been different issues. But you can't get a worse outcome than what's happened. So that's hard to think about. But I gave birth to my beautiful, gorgeous, amazing little boy on the 23rd of August. I had gone in on the 22nd because I'd been very sick, and then I realised that I actually hadn't felt a move in a while, so I'd gone into triage. But you never think the absolute worst. You just think like, oh, there could be something wrong. And I went in and I had to wait 2 hours, which again, like, that's another thing that I'm just like, but if a woman comes in saying they can't feel their baby moving, like, should you be waiting 2 hours? I don't think so. But you know, that's not to say that those 2 hours caused what happened. And they kept me in overnight, and then at about 6:30 in the morning, they were like, you're getting taken for C-section. And I was thinking, oh, like, it'll be in a few hours. I had no idea anything was wrong. Neither did the doctors, really, like, not to the level that it was. They just thought, you know, he's in some form of distress, so let's take him out. So I got prepped for theatre, and I phoned Tristan. I was like, you need to get here right now, like, baby boy is coming. So he got here, and he literally got in just as they were about to make the incision. And it was fun. Like, we thought everything was okay. You could see me smiling on the table. And obviously when you're having a C-section, you can't see what they're doing. Obviously I didn't hear him cry, but that's also not abnormal with C-sections. They took him out, and I remember the surgeon, or I'm just going to call him a surgeon, saying to me, oh, there's meconium in your womb, that could be why he's distressed. And so I was like, oh, okay, like obviously that's not ideal, but it's okay, that's fine. And then I think they just said, oh, we're gonna take him through. No, they just took him through, and I obviously was like, okay, well there's something wrong because I've not seen my baby. And so it turns out when he came out, he was really, really tight and like this, and he wasn't breathing. But they resuscitated him, and then he was breathing again. But he just had very abnormal movements. Like he was really tight, and his jaw was juttering, and his hand was juttering. And they didn't think it was a seizure, but obviously they weren't sure because he's brand new. And then he was on a ventilator, hooked up to all these tubes. And again, like, it's obviously not good, but you just never think it's going to be as bad as it was. And then you're kind of like, right, okay, it's obviously not good. He's in the NICU, but it's fine. Like, he'll be in the NICU for as long as he needs to be, and then we'll have our baby home. And then before he went up to the NICU, they brought him to me, and we touched noses. And that is my favourite photo of us. The cutest little nose. And I remember all I could see was he looked perfect, and he was very hairy. And then he got taken up to the NICU, and I got put in a private room, which I guess should have maybe been a red flag in its own thing, to get the feeling back in my legs and everything. But I was lying there, like, in my room recovering, not knowing that my baby was basically barely alive. I had no idea. And Mum and Tristan went up to see them. I couldn't walk yet, so I was still down in the labour suite. And I don't think nobody knew much, because it was such abnormal movements. You don't see that often. Nobody knew the extent to Cody's showing of being ill. And I just remember going, and we asked one of the neonatal nurses, like, could we lose him? And they were just like, yeah. And it's just like, you come from such a high of being like, oh my god, I just gave birth, this is my baby, like, I would die for them. Like, you would literally give your right arm, you'd give your left, like, you'd give anything for them. And he was just lying there, like, all in his little incubator, like, all tubed up. But I think, like, one of the hardest things was he looked, this isn't just me saying, like, he looked perfect, but, like, if you removed all those tubes, he looked like a healthy little baby. I think that was so hard, because you were just like, why aren't you, why aren't you blinking? Why aren't you looking at me? Like, he never opened his eyes, he never cried. And they have to make a decision pretty quickly if they think it's, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like something encephalopathy or something along those lines, where they then essentially put the babies on a cold mat to stop if the brain's been starved of oxygen, because it's quite clearly something brain related, because just the way he was presenting, but we didn't know to what extent. And they decided that it wasn't that, and I think he had every test, everything done under the sun to see if they could work out what happened. We had genetic testing, we had viral testing, he was on antibiotics. Tristan and I had I can't even remember what it's called, it's like tri-chromosome genetic. We have a blood test, he has a blood test, and we see if there's anything that flags but there wasn't. And we still don't really know what happened. It was such a strange thing because you knew he was in the isolation room at the top end of the NICU. So he was very clearly the most ill baby in the NICU, but he was the only one that was full term, and like that's what I mean, like he looked so healthy if you took all those tubes and everything away. And oh my god, he smelled so yummy. Like I can't, if you've never smelled a baby, like the smell is honestly, you just feel high off of it. It's so amazing. And I think those first 4 days you're terrified because obviously he's in isolation and we couldn't hold him, and then you're like, you know, and then you have hope because what else, like you have to have hope, you've got to, so you have hope. And then more and more tests kept coming back negative, and then he went for an MRI for his brain. At first his brain was normal, which everyone was shocked at, because it's quite clearly something brain related, and then that kept our hopes up. We were like, okay, his brain's normal, there's no clear brain damage on the MRI, that's great. I don't understand how this works, but then like over the few days as it kept getting analysed, they saw that there was brain damage. I don't get how that works, but that's how it was. And then a junior doctor came to check on my C-section incision, and she checked it and it was all fine, and she really flippantly said, it's hard not to be angry at her, but she obviously she didn't know, but also like had she not told me, would I have known? How long would I not have known for? But she was like, so you obviously know there were 3 knots in your umbilical cord, and kept speaking. I was like, excuse me, I hadn't been told this. And I was like, 3 knots in your umbilical cord seems something that I think should be mentioned to the mum, and it wasn't. And then I was just, honestly, it was at that point I was like, this isn't good. Obviously it wasn't good anyway, but I think I knew that we weren't going to get to take him home. I just feel like that blind hope had gone, but it was very much like just soak up every single second that I got with my little boy. And just constantly, just that I had meetings with doctors, with heads of departments, with geneticists. Like, we still don't have a definitive answer of what happened. And you know, yes, he had 3 knots in his cord, but he also didn't come out stillborn. So like, and that's what's really hard, because I'm like, if you take him out at 28 weeks, those knots can't have been there, because he was 38 weeks when he was born. And those knots can't have been there for 10 weeks, because otherwise he wouldn't have still been alive. And it's so hard just not constantly go back to what ifs. And I think when you're the mum, you blame yourself. And I know with the knots, there's literally nothing a mum can do. Like, you can't do anything. And I'm just like, how can life just be so cruel? This was the most unbelievably, obviously devastating time of my life. But I think, like, it really, when Tristan and I were at the hospital that whole time, and we just couldn't get over the fact that life was normal on the outside of the walls of that hospital. Like, I don't understand how, because our world had ended. And it's the most grounding thing, because, you know, I mean, I wasn't on my phone for 2 weeks, but you're like, when you see what people are like complaining about, you just feel like saying, shut the hell up. Like, you have no idea what hard is. Nobody should have to go through what we went through, and to have to do it at 22. Not that doing it at any age makes it any better. But I think the fact that we're 22, like, we were having discussions about things nobody should have to have discussions about. We had to make decisions, we had to do things that nobody should have to do. And he was our first baby. And again, that's not to say that, you know, it would be easier if he wasn't our first, but I just think when you've got no children to come back to, like, it's just a constant. You are literally reminded every second of every day that your baby's not here and that that's what you should be doing. And, you know, like, I'm now working again because I was like, I need to work. I can't just sit and I can't sit and do nothing. Like, I need to work. And like, when you have that little moment of like, oh, I can't be bothered to go to work or whatever, and then you just think, because you know, I should be cuddling my baby in bed. But like the holiday, like Halloween, was hard because I just remember Tristan and I talking when I was pregnant, like, oh, what are we gonna dress him up in? And Christmas, like, I was so excited to have Christmas with him. And I will never understand why we had to go through this and why so many other people have to go through this. Because that's the other thing, like, you feel when you're going through it, you feel so alone and so isolated. And you just all you think is, why me, why us, why my baby? And you, even though you know other people go through it, it feels like you're the only person in the whole world. And I think as well, like, I was pregnant at the same time as loads of people, and like, all I see on social media is people with their babies, and I'm just like, why do they get their babies and I don't? Like, why does my baby get taken away? And you just feel like, what did I do? What did I do in life to deserve this? Life isn't fair. It's so unfair. And I think about him every day. Every second of every day. He is the first thing I think of when I wake up, and the last thing I think of when I go to sleep. And I hope this is the worst pain I ever have to feel in life, because it's so consuming and just, yeah, like, I just feel like I can't breathe. The only time since he was born that I felt like I could breathe was when he was lying on my chest. And in the hospital, when it basically got to the end and he was very sedated, he was sedated the whole time, and then the nurses were like, we need to take his sedation off because we need to see what he can do, what functions he has, like, what, because at this point he was fully sedated on a ventilator, and then his sedation was fully off. He was still on the ventilator, but you know, if that was a baby with no issues, they would be like trying to pull the ventilator out, they'd be moving around, their eyes would obviously be open, and his wasn't. So then we had to make the decision of when we were gonna take him off the ventilator to see what he would do breathing wise, and we made the decision to do it the following Friday, so that was 2 weeks after he was born. And we didn't know if, you know, he could breathe on his own for months, and if it was months, then we would move to Rachel House, which is our hospice. It could have been seconds, it could have been minutes, and they gave us as much choice. We got to make every decision we could in that context. And we decided that we were going to go into the family room, which was where we were sleeping every night, right next. Cody was in this little isolation room, and this family room was connected to it with a bed. So I don't want to say I feel lucky, but I felt lucky that we could stay in that room. I could never have left the neonatal ward, so that the family room was specifically for the isolation room. And they wheeled him through to the family room, and they up to sedation again. They were in contact with the end-of-life care team at Rachel House, and they up to sedation to make sure that he was comfortable and he wasn't in any pain. And they took his ventilation off, and I just held him, and we didn't know how long he was gonna breathe for. So that was the most traumatic 8 hours of my life, I think, because I was just holding him, and you just constantly think like, is this your last breath? Is that your last heartbeat? And it was the first time we got to see him without all the tubes and everything. He was just so perfect. And then we did some memory making with him. We had a photographer from Remember My Baby come, and they do photo shoots for families in our position, or if you had a stillbirth. We did castings of his feet and his hands, and I just sang to him the whole time for 8 hours. And I would do anything to get to hold him again. But yeah, we held him, and his colour started to change, and he started kind of going blue, and we knew that it was getting close to his last breaths. So I just held him extra tight. We just kept saying, I love you so much, I love you so much. Like, thank you for fighting to meet us. And I just kept kissing him, and like smelling him and kissing his hands. And then he grew his little angel wings. And then we had a cuddle, I think it's called a cuddle cot, which I didn't even know were a thing. Like, you don't know they're a thing unless you have to use one. And it's a crib that underneath it's like freezing cold, and it preserves them. And because he passed away on a Friday night, like, nothing was going to be done till the Monday, and Tristan and I didn't want him going down to the morgue and being all on his own. So we had him we stayed in the hospital for another 2 days, and we had him in the cuddle cot next to us, which in and of itself is traumatizing, because nobody should have to hold their dead baby, and nobody should have to have their dead baby next to them for days. But we just didn't want him on his own, and we just wanted to know where he was, like, all the time. We wanted to be able to see him all the time. So he stayed with us we stayed with him for 3 days or something, until he was taken away for his autopsy. And when he was away for his autopsy, we were constantly getting updates of where he was, and you know, everybody, he was so loved by everyone. All the nurses absolutely loved him. He was just so handsome, and he was my little Cody bear. And I called him my hairy wolf as well, because he was so hairy, which would explain all the acid reflux I had and all the milk I had to keep drinking. And he had his little Dino with him everywhere. He still has his Dino. This is my Dino, and Tristan has a Dino. This was the little buddy that both my best friend and my cousin got him, and it was just the perfect size, because it just fit right next to him, and he was never ever without his Dino. And everyone in the NICU was just like, it's always Cody and his Dino, and the Dino had his own little tag. And I have my Dino with me every minute of every day. I take him to work, take him everywhere. I just am surrounded by, I just need to feel him around me the whole time. And I think that's a hard thing. People don't know how to act. They don't like, but the one thing I can say, if you're watching this, if you've not gone through it and you know somebody that has, don't be afraid to say their name, and show that person that you've not forgotten them, and just talk about them, share your stories. I have this little baby grow that he had on, and I cuddle this every night. I have this Winnie the Pooh bear because he was also our little Pooh bear, and when Tristan and I, we go every Sunday to his grave and we read a book. We read one book out of his big Winnie the Pooh treasury collection. I think we're on book number 4 right now. 5, 4. Anyway, this little Dino pin, that's what everyone had at his funeral. Everybody had one of these little Dino pins on. And his funeral was really nice, can I say that? But it was heartbreaking, but it was really lovely. We walked in singing "You Are My Sunshine," which I sang to him every single day, probably about 20 times, because he is my sunshine. And I kept singing "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow" from Annie. I think that was my reminder that, you know, the sun, like, you know, you're in the deepest, darkest depths of darkness right now, but you just have to keep thinking that the sun will come out tomorrow. You know, like, keep going. Your baby lives through you. Your baby is with you, and we promised that we would show him the world, and as we kept saying, the sun will come out tomorrow. But I still have the letter that I wrote to him. Well, these are the words that I spoke at his funeral. And I did it as a letter to him, as I'm speaking to him. Actually, I might read it so that I've always got a recording of it in case I ever lost the sheet or something happened to it. So Tristan wrote his own words, and then I wrote my own words. I said, "My darling baby boy, there are so many things I have to say, and yet I don't know where to start. For 9 months I grew you, I felt you every heartbeat, every kick and every hiccup. Whenever anyone asked me what I wanted to be in life, I never knew the answer, but knew I always wanted to be a mummy. And I dreamt about you for so long, and it was you, Cody, who made that dream come true. I never imagined there would be an after you, and that our time together would be so short, but I know we still managed to have lots of fun together. My favourite was definitely our Harry Potter marathon and your Gryffindor baby grow from Uncle Dylan, but I think Daddy's would have to be watching the Top Gear specials and Italian Grand Prix. Our funniest moment together was definitely you making Daddy go through 3 nappies during his first solo nappy change and making him wear the surgical blue gloves for every nappy change. You are a very well-cultured little boy, having listened to every single one of Mummy's favourite musicals, the whole of the Bridgerton playlist, Eva Cassidy, Billy Joel, Mozart and so much more. We even listened to Mummy's childhood favourite Barney, which Mimi concerningly still remembered all the words to. I loved rereading The Wind in the Willows and watching Mummy and Daddy's favourite movies with you every night. It's safe to say from day one you were definitely a ladies' man, as you had every nurse and doctor swooning over you and wanting to look after you, even getting flowers from them. I will never get over the fact that I made you. You were the most perfect and gorgeous little boy I have ever seen. Your hairy arms, your ears, your hairy back and legs will never fail to make us smile, and your perfect little nose and big hands and feet were again just so perfect. I want to thank you, Cody Bear, for choosing me to be your mummy and for showing us what this kind of all-consuming love feels like. I didn't know it was possible to feel this much pain, but that's because I didn't know I could have this much love for someone. I want to thank you for being so brave and strong. Life obviously got very difficult for you at some point, and you could have given up, but you didn't. and you fought to meet Mummy and Daddy and give us the most precious 14 days with you, filled with so many cuddles and kisses and memories. I'm just so sorry that I couldn't keep you safe and that you didn't get to stay with us. But I know you will always be with us and giving Mummy and Daddy the strength we need to keep going every day. Even at the end, when they took you off the ventilator, you showed us how much of a trooper you truly were, breathing on your own for 8 hours when the doctors thought it would only be minutes. Cuddling you and kissing you while you took your last breaths and your heart stopped beating, we watched you grow your angel wings. And although Mummy and Daddy were meant to be looking after you, we know you are now looking over us and protecting us. That day you took a bit of us with you, which will always be with you, baby. You will never be alone. And I will never, for the rest of my life, understand why you were taken from me. And although this is the worst pain a person can feel in life, I would do it all again, baby boy, to get to meet you and to hold you, smell your milky scent. When I close my eyes, I still feel your kicks and your hiccups. And I feel like I can't breathe properly without you here. And there's an ache so deep inside me that I know will never leave me. But even when you see Mummy and Daddy are sad, know that we are happy that you now get to forever run around and have adventures with Dino and get up to mischief. And we get to know you only ever experienced great love in this awful world. You will always be the first and last thing I think of every day. And I will look for you in every moment of every day, in the sunset, in the stars. If love was enough to save you, baby boy, you truly would have lived forever. But I promise you that Mummy and Daddy will take you with us everywhere, with our dinos, and show you the world. You will always be my sunshine, my Pooh Bear, my hairy little wolf, and my precious little Cody Bear. I remember, like we read in Winnie the Pooh, if ever there is a tomorrow when we're not together, even if we're apart, I'll always be with you. Mummy and Daddy will love you forever, Cody Bear, and miss you every second of every day. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry I've sniffed so many times like that. It's really quite disgusting. But that's what I read to him. And I just want to have that as a saved in case for some reason I wanted to just read it again or hear it again. The nurses in the hospital were amazing. This is one of the little prints they did with him. That's his feet. We watched the whole of the Harry Potter series. And so she did an I'll Always Love You. That's his little feet as an owl. And they did a Lightning McQueen. They did Toy Story. They decorated his, they're in here, there's some of them. They decorated his incubator with little Toy Story stickers. The nurses truly were amazing. And that's my little boy. And every night before I go to sleep, it's an LED candle. And I like this, it's got little angels on it. And I've got my Cody Bear bracelets. I've got this bangle that my auntie got me that says Cody in the middle. And then this butterfly necklace, one of the hearts is taken out. And when we buried Cody, he had a heart in each hand. And Tristan and I have the other hearts. So he's always got our hearts. He's always got a piece of us with him. And I had a necklace that said Mama that I gave to him to hold when we buried him. And I got these tattoos. So this one says Cody Bear. And then I've got this one, which is my favourite one. And then I've also got these little angel wings. Show that I've got my little guardian angel on my shoulder. Nobody should ever have to go through this. And it's so unfair. And you know, obviously it makes me absolutely terrified to be pregnant again, because you know, when you're pregnant, you're told get to these certain milestones, get to 12 weeks, get to 24 weeks. You never think that you can get to the full term and still not get to take your baby home. So I'm absolutely terrified to be pregnant again. But I think I just have to take the deep breath that Cody, whenever we have that blessing again, as soon or as far away as it is, that it is just a little blessing from Cody, and Cody will have sent them, and that Cody's helping them grow, because Cody it will always be in part of side of me, it will always be part of my DNA, and I just have to think that, otherwise it will just be an unbelievable amount of stress. And I think it's so, like, people have asked, like, would you have another one? And it's such a difficult, like, you don't, right now I feel like I have all of this unbelievable amount of maternal love that obviously I have for Cody, but I can't express it the way that a mum should be able to. And I in no way whatsoever want to replace Cody. I would literally give my right arm to be able to have Cody here with me right now. But like at the same time, I have all of this like love and just all of these things that I was expecting to do with Cody, and now I can't, and I think that was really difficult. But at the same time, I would never ever ever want to feel like I was trying to replace him. And so I think that's why I say, like, if and when it happened, it would be very natural, and we need to feel like it was a blessing from Cody and it wasn't something that we actively tried to do. And I just have to trust that he'll be holding my hand and holding their little hand. And until whenever that day is, I just get to do what I'm doing now and just be with my thoughts with Cody. Go visit his grave every week. I kiss my wrist every night, say goodnight to Cody. I'm waiting on I got a necklace made with my breast milk and a little bit of his hair and his umbilical cord, which I can't wait to come. And just cover everywhere with photos. And I know the pain will never go away, and I never want it to go away. And I think for this to be my first experience of grief is pretty tough, but there is no right way to grieve. There is no right way to keep on going after you lose a child. If you're watching this, if you've gone through it or going through it, like, you're so not alone. And however it is that you choose to get through your day, if that is literally lying in bed, that's absolutely fine. If that is getting back into work, that's absolutely fine. I had to go and work. As much as I could have laid in bed and just not want to get out, in my head I was like, I'm eventually gonna have to get up, so I might as well just keep going now. And I have compartmentalized, like, to the max, but at the same time, like, I can just cry, like, I will just cry. But I think, like, that's however you try to keep going, however you can keep going, like, that's how to do it. There is no right way to grieve. And I think it's difficult when everybody grieves so differently, because you might think, like, how are you fine? Some people might think about me like, how are you fine? I'm not fine. I'm absolutely not fine, but, like, I have to keep going, and I promised that I'd show Cody the world and that I'd stay strong for him. And I think, you know, when it's really tough, you just have to think, what would your baby want for you? What would they want you to do? how you keep going. And it's okay when your mind gets really dark, because it does get dark. It will get dark, and I think you just kind of think like, if my baby's gone through that, then, you know, death's not as scary. But your baby, you have to show your baby the world, because they're always going to be with you. They're always going to be just over your shoulder. They're always going to be just holding your hand. They're never far away. For the rest of your life, you're never going to be alone, because your baby's always going to be right there with you. And you're still an amazing mummy. You still grew them to whatever age they got to. They're still your little darling. They're still your little darling. And now you just got a guardian angel. And in the long future, when our time comes, they'll be waiting for us. And, you know, there's some peace in that. And I just like to think that he is with all the other little lost babies up there, playing with them and keeping each other company, and that any lost mummies up there are looking after our babies. And I think that that's nice to think about. They're not alone, and those mummies aren't alone. They have the lost babies to look after. They're little angels, and you just have to look out for the signs, look out for the feathers of their little angel wings, look in the sunsets and the sunrises and the stars, look for the brightest star in the sky. Just keep talking about your baby. It is really hard. It's always going to be hard. But I remember watching a video that Andrew Garfield was in, and it was something like, he said that all the tears and all the sadness and grief, like, it's just all the unexpressed love, and it just shows how much love you have for them. So you're allowed to cry. You're absolutely allowed to. You're also allowed to not cry if that doesn't make you any less of a loving mum, dad, whoever. But our grief is literally just all the love that we have for them. And it's okay to feel like you can never get out of this, but just know that your baby's with you, and I'm with you. We're not alone, even though we feel so alone. And you will smile again. You will. But I just wanted this video to be on my channel. I wanted to have this here as like a kind of reference that, you know, sometimes I will sit and I'll talk about grief, and I'll talk about like trying to keep going with all of this, but I will try to keep going as normal. Like, I will keep posting. I will post videos as normal. But then sometimes, you know, we might just need a big sit down, let's reflect, and that's okay. And, you know, weeks could go by and they could be fine, and then it could hit you like an absolute truck suddenly, and I think that's just what grief is. But I think I'm now going to play a little montage of all my photos, or some photos of Cody, so you can just see how handsome and gorgeous he truly was. But I love you, Cody Bear. Thank you for making me a mummy. I love you so much, and miss you even more. I love you, baby.
If just for a minute I'd fall asleep and not dream about you. I hate to admit it, I'm out of ideas, I don't know what to do. Most of the times I think I'll make it through, but all that it takes is one image of you, and it shivers